Every May 4th, China celebrates its Youth Day, which commemorates the May 4th movement of 1919. The event was led by thousands of university students in a mass demonstration to oppose imperialism and feudalism. It marked the start of national awakening, which paved the way for the birth of new China 30 years later in 1949. So how alive is the spirit of the movement today, or has it evolved through time? Let's hear from 4 Chinese youths or young people who are making an impact on society. Welcome to a special edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin, coming to you from Beijing. I'm pleased to be joined from Beijing by Liu Jichen, founder of the Clear Plate Initiative, also a UN nominee as Young Leader for Sustainable Development Goals. Li Xiang, Associate Professor of the Institute of Energy at Peking University. Wang Cong, Chief Reporter of Global Times. And from Xi'an, Western China's Shanxi Province, Li Wenfeng, Associate Professor at the School of Aeronautics at Northwestern Polytechnic University. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. I have to apologize that we don't have a female face today. Not at all that we do not respect or want to give them a representation, but because of a last-minute cancellation, we will try to talk about them and give them or try to gauge their impact on the society through the perspective of our guests today. But first of all, let's get to know our guests. And may I start with Ji Chen first? You started the Clear Plate Initiative, which is an application that uses AI technology to help reduce food waste. You were nominated by the United Nations as a young leader for sustainable development goals for raising awareness about saving food. But why did you drop out from Tsinghua University, one of the best universities in the world, to pursue this goal? Were you not afraid that it was too risky?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Jichen Liu. It was an honor for me to join this event. Actually, I have paid attention to global food waste issues when I was in university. And at that time, I have had some campaigns in university. And I came to notice that actually most people wasted food, more or less. So I really want to tackle these issues. And in year 2018, I was lucky enough to get some angel investment, and I started Clear Plate app. This is an AI-based app. Right now, we have nearly 9 million users. And as you say, in year 2020, I was nominated by United Nations as China's first young leader for the SDGs. Our mission is to inspire and empower everyone to take actions against food waste. And the major reason for my decision to gap is, some ideas just can't wait.
So you didn't want to wait to finish your university before you start your own business?
For every startup, from 0 to 1 is the most difficult part for us as well. And at the very beginning, we need lots of efforts, for example, to make the AI smart enough to recognize whether clear plate or not, or to build my team and to form the user growth from 0 to 9 million. This is a very hard process. We spent lots of time and energy on that. So taking gap year is a must choice for a startup.
I see.
But luckily, actually, last year, I have came back to Tsinghua University to continue my study. And I will continue to apply for a master degree this year.
Let me turn to Professor Li Wenfeng, joining us from Xi'an. You spent 6 years in total studying aircraft design, engineering, and fluid mechanics in China, and then you obtained a Doctor of Philosophy degree in aerodynamics after 5 years studying in Germany. At the age of 34, you're already an associate professor. What kind of work have you put into your study and research to come this far at such a young age?
Yeah, actually, my research is on aerodynamics, and we try to understand the problems of aerodynamics related to aircraft. So it's not an easy task, but yeah, But so far, I'm very satisfied with my work. Yes, it took me years to get my PhD, and I think I got luck, so I can be appointed as a associate professor in Xi'an. Yes.
But you must really have been passionate about what you do. I mean, you are such a young age, you already have your doctorate. When did you started getting passionate about planes, about, you know, fluid mechanics and aerospace engineering?
Well, it's a long story. So when I was a child, you know, the Shenzhou 6 and Shenzhou 5 was launched in, I don't remember the year, but when I was I think it was in the middle school. So I was very motivated to study aerospace engineering. And I decided to enter NWPU for the major of aircraft design engineering. And since then, I'm working on this field. Yeah.
Let me get back more on your story a bit later, but let me turn to Wang Cong, who's a chief reporter at Global Times, my colleague, I would say. Wang Cong, you came from a ethnic minority in southwest China's Sichuan province, but then you went on to study journalism in the United States, and then you were Washington, D.C. correspondent for a television channel in Hong Kong covering the Pentagon and U.S. Congress. And now you're working at Global Times for chief reporter, leading the business news section. What has motivated you to pursue journalism and to use a foreign language to do journalism?
Well, I ask that myself a lot, and I haven't found the correct answer yet. And as you mentioned, I am a journalist now. But I think my story began in Sichuan, as you mentioned. I was born and grown up in Liangshan Yi Autonomous Prefecture, which is one of the poorest places in China, in all of China. And before I even attended elementary school, I didn't speak one word of Putonghua. And I studied that, and then until high school, I didn't learn English. So when I started learn English, there was an opportunity came up to be an exchange student in the United States, and then somehow I ended up in Michigan, where I which I didn't know about before. And then after that, I chose to study journalism, because I feel that it's not about I want to pursue a career in journalism, but I wanted it to be more proficient in English, because I was studying in the United States. That's the most basic skill I have to learn. And then right after journalism school, there was an opportunity to be a reporter in Washington, D.C. And that's where I see what's the job entails and what it's like to be a reporter, journalist in the United States, at least. And then when I come back to Beijing, naturally, I applied a job at Global Times and started from there, yeah.
Fascinating. Last but not least, let me turn to Professor Li Xiang. You are associate professor also at a very young age, 36, but you already have a doctorate degree of engineering from Tsinghua University. You were director at Rocky Mountain Institute, which is an organization based in America focused on sustainable energy innovation. And you have also worked with the International Energy Agency, the IEA. Now you are at Peking University. Tell us a bit your passion with the topic of energy, with the topic of sustainability.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me, because May the 4th is also the 124th anniversary of Peking University, and we are actually preparing to celebrate that. And talking about my previous experience, I'm happy to share some of my experience, previously, because I've changed my job quite a bit compared to these people. And I've worked with a Chinese think tank, which directly support the National Energy Administration in policymaking. And then I changed my job to an international organization in Paris, and then to the United States. So for my job, I think the biggest passion is to climate change. And also, when China announce to the world about the climate change pledge, and also we want to climate neutrality by 2060. These are very important and very inspiring to me. I'm trying to bridge, the gap between the international other countries and also China. I think that's important, and also that helps me a lot to keep my passion in the energy transition work.
Very interesting. So we've heard a little bit about each and every one of you, but our focus today is really about the May 4th movement and the spirit of the movement, which is about patriotism, about democracy, about progress, and about science. As Professor Li Xiang just mentioned, Peking University is where the bulk of the students came from in 1919 when they started to have a demonstration in Beijing against imperialism and feudalism. Let's take a look first back in history to find out exactly what the May 4th movement was all about. Take a look at this.
1919 would be the year that sparked China's Renaissance. Thousands of students gathered at the center of Beijing's Tiananmen Square on the afternoon of May the 4th. What they were demanding was defend China's sovereignty, punish the traitors. The May 4th movement came after Beiyang government's failure in diplomacy. As one of the victorious nations of the First World War, China's legitimate demands were rejected at the Versailles Peace Conference in Paris. The peace treaty transferred German interests in China's eastern province of Shandong to Japan. When the news reached China, fury gripped students and intellectuals. Soon, Chinese from all walks of life joined the movement as it spread across the country. Around 2 months later, Chinese representatives refused to attend the signing ceremony at Versailles. The May 4th movement had achieved its goal. But this was only the beginning of a new chapter in China's history of struggling against the imperialism and feudalism. It marked the start of China's democratic revolution. Marxism started to be introduced and thoroughly discussed in newspapers. It gained wide public acceptance with the integration with the emerging worker forces. The legacy of the May 4th movement has been passed down for 100 years, including patriotism, progressive mindset, democracy, and science.
So, having seen that brief look back in time, let's talk a little bit about how alive is the spirit among the young people today. Ji Chen, let me go back to you. Is there a sense that the May 4th movement or the students, those images of students getting involved in opposing imperialism, in grasping the fate of their country in their own hands, is that still relevant to you and to your peers today?
Yes, definitely. And there is a coincidence that the registration date of my company is May the 4th. So today is also the 4th anniversary of my startup. I think the spirit at least means 3 aspects for me and for all the young people right now. The number one is, the commitment to love the home country and the people. And number 2 is sharing the concern for the whole humanity. And then number 3 is struggling against the circumstances. China youth today needs this spirit, I think, more than ever, because the world today is facing unprecedented change at another historic moment since World War II.
How do you see that idea, the lofty idea of love for the country, translated into what you do on a daily basis? Because you have chosen, for instance, to highlight people's awareness about food scarcity. Is that how you demonstrate your understanding of love for the country?
Yeah, I think patriotism is quite relevant to our daily life. I'm proud of being Chinese. I feel proud of the traditional Chinese culture, or I share the same destiny with my nation, etc. And I think patriotism needs to be internalized and translated into practical actions. For me, implementing Clear Plate app is one way, because in China, food waste is a huge problem. So we need some new solutions. And for most people, we must link our impersonal growth with the future of our country and the destiny of our nation, just as the great rejuvenation of our Chinese nation.
Professor Li Wenfeng, let me get to you. Do people talk about patriotism a lot today, or is it something that's at in the back of their mind, what they do or what they say? What is your understanding?
Patriotism is from my opinion, is a feeling of attachment to one's country and its people. For example, when I was in Germany in 2020, at the beginning of the COVID breakout, overseas, Chinese tried to find every masks available on the market and donating them back to Wuhan. I would like to say this is a good example of patriotism.
Wang Cong, let me get to you. When we talk about patriotism, of course, some people would frown, from outside of China, and immediately they would have the connection or the doubt whether this is true patriotism we're talking about, or this is some form of ultra-nationalism that we're talking about. What is your gauge of the situation among young people today? For instance, among your younger colleagues, how do they see the feeling of patriotism and the need to possess that kind of feeling today?
I think there's a lot of resemblance between now and over 100 years ago. You alluded to the historic context, to the national reality back then that gave birth to the movement that the youth feel that their country was threatened. They were facing not literally a life and death situation, and then they stand up. I think today where China is in terms of the international pressure, the constant slander, criticism, geopolitics, I think we're not facing an imminent invasion, but in terms of the external environment, a lot of the youth, a lot of my colleagues and the people of my age feel that we're at that stage again, that China as a country has been squeezed smaller, and there's a growing frustration and the different types of responses, of course. But from my perspective, in talks with my colleagues, people of my age, I think the true patriotism is genuine confidence, genuine pride of the country, no matter what. If we establish that, we all are pride and confident in our culture, in our country, in our system.
Do you think there is a danger that it might get a little bit unhealthy?
Well, there are, online, there are always extreme views online anywhere in the world. But I think the overall sentiment is genuine and understandable. So I think it's not about ultra-nationalism. That's something the Western media used to describe, to discredit our patriotism. Because in the United States, for example, it's very natural for them to burst into their national anthems at parties, at sports events. In China, there was a sense of, awkwardness if you, talk patriotically, if you sing. So there are different understandings, and I think we're at the stage that we as a country can have an honest understanding of that and how we move forward. And now I see, that's why I'm also very encouraged by the younger generation. They do have a genuine pride. They are confident about expressing that.
Professor Li Xiang, you have a first-hand experience also living in China and living in the United States. What is your understanding of the situation? Is China hyping the sense of patriotism to the degree of nationalism or ultra-nationalism, or is China merely making up the deficit of patriotism, which should have been there in the first place?
I think the biggest issue is not that we are, overestimate our patriotism, but it is more like, the Chinese people, they're more and more aware of the situation of a polarized world. And we are kind of, trying to explain to the Western world or to the outside world that China is a hospitality country, and also we're not trying to be enemy to any parts of the world. The biggest experience for me when I work at the IEA, International Energy Agency, is that other countries takes China more and more seriously. The World Energy Outlook is the flagship report of the IEA, and basically they talk about China more and more frequently in the recent years. They have a special focus on China in 2017, and in 2021, they also publish a report on the net zero pathway of China. And all the countries within the IEA are OECD countries, and they are more and more focused on how China can lead the climate change issues, when the US step aside, and also how China could achieve its climate pledge. And I think all the countries feel China is more and more important. And we actually, when we live abroad, we feel extremely proud of our own country.
Indeed, China is becoming more and more important, and maybe that also explains why China is so much talked about and criticized in the international spotlight. Chen, you have, of course, been representing China abroad, for instance, on the forum of the Youth Leader for Sustainable Development Goals. Do you have the impression that Chinese youth are already there where they should be, or we are still catching up on that deficit of awareness of being Chinese, of the pride that should be being associated of being Chinese?
Actually, young people have more visibility on the international stage. For example, for me, I have joined many international events held by UNDP, UNESCO, UNEP, and other international sectors. And I think to tell Chinese stories more effectively doesn't mean that we need to talk about the government strategies. Actually, we just need to express a true China. For example, how a startup grows. For me, I just need to talk about our solution to tackle food waste issues and how we use this app to help the government units to reduce food waste. And this is an evidence that China is becoming more and more open and modern to the whole world. And young people actively definitely draw inspiration from the experience and achievements of other countries and civilizations as well. We work along with peers from around the world to build a global community of shared future.
So you're more open-minded and you're willing to communicate with your international counterparts. Professor Li Wenfeng, you were in Germany for years. What were your experience?
I think my peers are pretty, let's say, open-minded and confident in the national stage. We have several Chinese colleagues in Germany in the same institute, and they all did a very great job. Back to the local people in China, I think the young people are still need to be more open-minded, and the diversity is getting stronger.
Wang Song, how do you look at that in terms of the kind of exchanges or potential areas, room for improvement where Chinese youth can benefit more from?
There are a lot of misplaced labels and misunderstandings about the younger generation, even within China, right? It's not about that there's not enough diversity in China and there's not enough genuine patriotism in China. It's about the different ways of expression. The youth in China, you would be surprised that they would not be open, to talk about their political views and their patriotism. But if you have, if you start the conversation, they can have very substantive, very sophisticated understanding of the country, of the global situation.
Yeah, I see. Finally, Professor Li Xiang, I promised to touch upon the female part of the younger generation. From your observation, because you must have male students and female students, do you see a marked difference among the two groups, or they're more or less similar, sharing similar aspirations and similar headaches and happiness in life?
Well, I have to say, the female students in general behaves much better than the male students in Peking University. For the female students, they are in general more confident, and they're more likely, to communicate, and they have more, natural conversations to the international, when we have an international conference. But for male students at Peking University, I think they're as good as the females, first of all, but they're a little bit shy. They're not, so familiar with the situation, especially when dealing with the international situations. So I highly appreciate, the female students at Peking University.
Many thanks to my 4 guests: Liu Jichen, founder of Clear Plate Initiative; Li Wenfeng, an associate professor with the School of Aeronautics of Northwestern Polytechnic University; Professor Li Xiang from the Institute of Energy of Peking University; and Wang Cong, chief reporter with the Global Times.